Wallace Conkle. I'm probably better known as Mr. Sawdust. We want to thank you for coming around today. This is the first of a series of videotapes that we're going to be doing, and we assume it's going to become a library of professional woodworking techniques. Our subject today is going to be setting up the ideal small shop. Now, this is going to be my own studio. My sons here have their own shops. This is not their shop at all, so assume that maybe this is your shop too. What we want to get into is what do we mean by ideal? It has a lot to do with what you're going to be building, what you're going to be making. But the real thing is that you should grow with your shop and your shop should grow with you. And we always tell our people at the school, buy your tools and your machinery on the basis of forever. If you buy a small table saw today, 10 years from now when your dream shop becomes a reality, you want that table saw to be of the quality that you chose in the first place and for it to be a working good tool. You're building a shop. Well, that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, this is my dream shop. This is absolutely everything and the finest of everything. It's taken a long time. I've been in this business a long time. So now, let's get to what we're here for. Let me tell you first, I have 6 sons. The 3 with me today are instructors at the school. This is Bruce, my second son. He's really our hand tool man, chair builder, etc. And this is Mark. Mark's my oldest son. Mark's into everything. He's heavy on power tools and heavy into wall cabinetry and fine furniture and all of that. And the fellow on my right is my 4th son. This is Wally. He's my big boy, and he came up in the boat building business. He thinks in massive moldings, he thinks in heavy stuff and curves and all of that, and, well, these are just magnificent woodworkers. So listen, fellas, I'm going on up, and you come on up a little later, all right? I'm sure going to need you. It won't come as a surprise to you when you find out that my studio shop is set up in our 2-car garage. Well, we didn't keep our cars in there anyway. And when I think of all the 2-car garages or spaces in America, the 20 by 25 feet that have nothing in them but junk, well, maybe it's about time you thought about setting up a perfect ideal shop. That's what we've got here, and it's going to be a surprise, I believe, when you see that I'm walking into a shop that has no major equipment in it. But that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be putting all that equipment in its proper place. We're going to be telling you all about it. I'm going to put on my work clothes here outside of a pair of pajamas. This is about the only kind of attire that I know. We got a lot to show you, lots to talk about. My kind of woodworking is the copying of fine early American pieces that are in museums. This is a low boy. The original is in a museum in Cleveland, Ohio. This is walnut. It's entirely handmade, and of course I've already said it's a low boy. Well, fine, low boy to a certain extent. I went a little further. This is an architect's table which goes into 12 positions. Now, I made this for my oldest grandson, and I try to make a major piece for each of my grandchildren, but I'm getting more grandchildren than I am time to make pieces. Everything in the drawers is a hand dovetail. The drawer bottoms, of course, there's no plywood in good furniture like this. This is a solid bottom with the tapered edges going into the 1/4-inch slot. As I say, this is the real thing. Now, I may copy something, but I may also not leave it alone. This, as you see it, is a drafting table. But I went just a little bit further, and as you see, I have a presentation table with a ledge on it. Notice the figure in the walnut. This is book match walnut. These were sawed consecutively and then opened up like a book. You have your mitered warp boards, and I'm just plain proud of it. Let's have a little bench talk. Pull up a stool and join me here, will you? I want to simplify this one for you and let it grow with us as we set up our shop. This is our garage floor area. We've got 25 feet on the front. It's square with 25 feet on the back. Here are your garage doors. Go to any other thing. I'm going to point to this right in the middle. This is a lolly column. This is your support in the center of the room, and sometimes you've got two of them. Hopefully you've only got one. I'm going to show you how to turn that disadvantage into an advantage in just a little bit. Now let's go around this way. This is an area here just to the side of the front garage door. It's 8 feet this way. Each one of these 1-inch squares is equal to 2 feet. So it's 8 foot by 30 inches, usable inches. Then at the end of that we have a door going to the outside. We have a little area here which in many cases is absolutely useless. We have a furniture. I've got furniture on my mind. We have a furnace room which we got to live with, right? It's got 2 doors on it. We have the tool cabinets which you see behind here. We're going to get you into those cabinets after a while. I believe that tool storage and cabinets and fixtures should all be furniture. You're living with them, they might as well be beautiful. And that brings us up to this point right here. This is your workbench. And we're going to show you all about that. But first, I want to take you to this area right here. We're going to start making use of that corner down there, and here's how we're going to do it. Now this is a corner where we store our hardwoods. And believe me, this is just a delight for the soul of a fine woodworker. Here's cherry, mahogany, walnut. There's oak behind the walnut. Down here is what I call special cherry. You have to be awful careful where you buy your hardwoods. There are no bargains. There are no bargains. The only thing that happens if you buy a bargain in hardwoods is that you make a piece of furniture twice because something's going to go wrong with the material itself. When we talk about special, look at this cherry. I've got a rick of cherry in here that's all this wide, 18 inches wide, pure gold, just beautiful. Imagine what I'm going to build with that. Of course, I already know what I'm going to build with it. The shelving came from a local factory. They had thrown it out, and I cleaned it up and painted it. A good heavy weekend's project. It'll hold tons, much more than I'll ever put in here. But this is what we do with this corner next to the garage door opening. Up here on the rail for the garage door, this is my favorite of all wooden clamps. Incidentally, this is the only kind of clamp where you can squeeze glued pieces together without them shifting on you. So much for clamps, etc. Now let's go to the compressor. Here we're taking advantage of what is otherwise completely useless area, and you'll need a compressor. It's a lot better than blowing machines off with your lungs. Here we've got miscellaneous stuff, finishing materials, all kinds of, that I can just reach for. And very important to me, and it's running because I've got some air going through here automatically, is the exhaust fan. And that takes care of chemical fumes if I'm putting contact cement on or whatever. But mainly I dust off equipment and take the dust outside, and then I sweep up what's left. That's my vacuum system. So we now go over to the furnace room. Now you'll recall on our model of the floor plan that the furnace room had 2 doors, naturally. Well, these doors were louvered doors. I've covered them up so that I could utilize the area, which means that I had to put an outside vent in the furnace room, just in case you do it for yourself. And of course, I've covered these doors with my choice of portable tools, the saw, the router, screw gun, fine saber saw, pad sander, and of course the delightful best of all belt sander. Back here in this otherwise useless corner are the great Jorgensen bar clamps. Now there's no substitute for a bar clamp. No matter what you think, it's like having 10 men working for you, and here I've got 6-footers, 4-footers, and 2-footers. So I'm pretty well equipped with clamps. Now let's go back to our floor plan. Now you see we've taken care of the lumber rack and the air compressor. We put the portable tools on the doors of the furnace room, and now we're at the workbench. And of course behind me are the tool cabinets. Let me tell you about this bench. Of course it's personal opinion, but I'll tell you right now, you won't find another bench like this anywhere in America. This is a right and left hand father and son bench. It will clamp absolutely anything up to 6 foot long, and I don't really care too much how wide. It's a combination joiner's bench and carver's bench. There are dogs down both sides. You see them here? Well, I got them over here too on this side, and the vices control each in any variable way. We've made over 40 benches, none of them this size. And you're not going to start out with this quality of bench. There's no way. I didn't, and no one really does. It's a little bit too much, but this is your first tool. If you can't hold on to your material, you're not going to work the material. Now, you can build a bench for yourself, and it should be very solid, and I'm going to ask Bruce to bring in here something that will help you build a bench. Fine. All you need is a pair of these. They're industrial legs. You can get them out of any industrial catalog. All you need with this is a proper size of butcher block, your laminated maple. They're available. And the combination of the maple top and these legs with the best vise you can buy of its kind for $250, $300, maybe a few dollars more than that, you will have a very good workbench of your own. Bruce, tell them about that, will you?
Well, this personally is my favorite vise. It hasn't changed in probably 100 years. It's got a buttress thread, a quick action thread that allows a 13-inch capacity. It's a 9-inch jaw, and make sure you buy a vise that has an adjustable dog. Now, with this dog, you're taking the place of the dog in the tail vise, and if you buy some 5/8-inch bolts, cut off the threads, and drill a series of holes in your bench at 3-inch centers at about a 3-degree angle, you're doing basically the same thing as you're doing in the European-style bench. So this is my recommendation.
Let me tell you about these cabinets, and of course you've been looking at these absolutely gorgeous layout tools here. This is one of the best examples I know of a woodworker manufacturing woodworking tools. This fellow is John Economaki out in Portland, Oregon. He calls himself the Bridge City Tool Works. These ought to be in an art gallery or museum somewhere, but I use these all the time. However, at the same time, I think they deserve good display. This brings us up to the fact that these doors on my cabinet will come off. You can see these are wooden hinges. They just slide up. I can take a door off and I can redesign the inside of it for layout of tools at any time I want to. Now, you'd probably like to see what's inside of here. We're just going to keep this between ourselves. We don't want the whole world knowing about what I got in this cabinet, right? Of course, this is saw blades, routers, drill bits. You're probably familiar with the fact that I've got my name on the best saw blade in the business, and you're looking at a batch of them, dado heads, etc. Come over here and open up this door. These are router bits to go along with the routers. You saw this door opened up. I've got that one saved. I've got something very special going on there. I don't know what it is yet, but it's very special that I'm going to put on there. These are my carving chisels. These are my larger chisels, and of course here are your miscellaneous tools without which you can't work. Whatever you need, you ought to be able to reach for it. And here, without going into too much detail, is a few $1,000s worth of shaper cutters, which in the not too distant future are going to be exactly extinct because of my new shaper cutters I'm coming out with. I don't mind giving myself a little plug. Well, that just about takes care of those details, and we're going to bring our floor model back. And do you see this? That's what you're looking for in your shop. That's the longest wall available to you. Now let's find out what to do with it.
Hi, I'm Wally's oldest son, Mark. This is the longest wall in the shop. It happens to be the perfect place to put your radial arm saw. A radial arm saw requires at least 8 feet on either side so that you can handle plywood and longer boards. This wall is especially good because on one end, a garage door, and on the other, you'll see this door over here, which goes under the stairs in the house. which is just perfect for opening up and shoving the end of a board through. Now, Wally and Bruce are setting the saw up. Once the saw is here, they're going to bring in roller tables. Now, a roller table makes it a lot easier to handle long boards by yourself. And most of the time when you're working at home, you will be by yourselves. Thanks a lot, guys. Now I'm going to let my father tell you a little bit more about this saw.
Yes, sir, Mark, this will be a pure pleasure. I'm addicted to this machine. Now, a lot of fellows will say, I want a table saw in my shop first, and fellows like me say, first comes the radial arm. Truthfully, with your material flowing along this wall parallel with the wall, never having to turn it out into this area out here, you have a machine that works in a confined area. But you've got a lot more than this. This is the only radial arm saw that's dependable, and anybody that does not like a radial arm saw owns one that is not dependable, and it's that simple. Now, all DeWalts are not great machines. When these controls are anywhere except in the back of this machine, you have chosen the wrong model. Not up here in front. That's the worst thing that was ever done to the radial arm saw, because in operating the handle, you are distorting the arm. You want it back here. Now, if you've got a machine lined up, it's a used one, 30 years old or something, it'll be a green one, it'll be called a GW or a 1030. The current model that is absolutely the best is a 7790. You're looking at it. This is the most versatile machine in the entire woodworking business for sawing, dadoing, and shaping. And if you don't believe that, you just keep on watching my tapes, because we're going to show you this is true. Well, now you know we've got the radial arm placed in the right spot along the longest wall, and you'll see that we have it on our floor plan. Now, of course, the ideal shop has absolutely got to have a fine table saw. I think the only, or the main, let's put it that way, controlling factor in setting up a shop is a piece of plywood 4x8 sheet. Over here with the DeWalt, you see, we bring it down like so, and we can go out the garage door beyond that if we want to, but we don't have to. It may be cold outside. And then we've got another 8 feet up here, so we've got plenty for the radial arm saw. Now we have to do the same thing with the table saw. And we position that right down about, I would say something like this. And let's say that here's what happens. Our fence is over in an area something like here, and we can go straight through here and again out the garage door, and we can come up here without hitting the compressor or the workbench. And that's all you need to know. You set it in the right place, so hopefully you can leave it there for 99% of your work. And I'm going to ask Mark, who's a lover of table saws, and he's got one here to love, he's going to tell you about the fine table saw in our shop, or in my shop.
Dad's right, I do love table saws, and this is an especially nice one. Something to look at in a table saw is a heavy machine. You don't want a saw that you can simply push over with a sheet of plywood. You want it to stay there. Now, this saw has heavy cast iron trunnions. The blade raising handle is cast iron, and one of the nice features of this saw is the fact that the blade tilts away from the fence, which is very important because you don't want the blade to trap the wood against the fence. It's a very dangerous situation. Another nice thing about this saw is this fence, which works like a drafting table. It's on cables, it stays parallel. Very, very nice fence. We've also taken this section of the table, which is normally just a piece of plywood or something, and this is where we installed a router. So we're really getting double use out of this machine. All in all, it's a very, very good table saw.
Well, back to our floor plan again. Now, somewhere in this layout, we have to find the proper position for the next most important machine that you'll want in an ideal shop. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You might as well start guessing a little bit. But I can give you a hint. The man who works with hand tools, especially fellows like Bruce who make their own, has to have a long plane. Of course, I know the name of it, and you probably do too, but I've given you a hint. A very long plane. And I'm going to have Wally take over from here, and he'll tell you about our next machine. Wally?
Now, you might have guessed that Dad was leading into the joiner. Okay, now we've got two basic machines for milling lumber, the joiner and the thickness planer, which I'll cover in a minute. Now, our joiner here is an 8-inch long bed joiner. It is, again, will stress mass to you. We need this mass, especially in a joining operation. We've always believed that a machine should be heavier than the piece of wood we're cutting. Now, this particular machine has got that for us. It has the long bed. If you're working alone, it's very nice to be able to have that long extension table. Now, you may have noticed earlier that we work with nothing but rough lumber. Now, there's a reason for that. We like to be able to have a nice straight 3/4 inch board, not a crooked one like you would get in a pre-planed board. Now, the way this starts out, of course, and here we'll have a board. This is a rough sawn board. It's very crooked. It does not lay flat on our table, as you can see. Our foundation cut in the shop is giving ourselves an absolutely smooth, flat surface. Okay, now that we've got that, that is our foundation for our second cut, which is an absolutely straight, smooth edge. From here, now we can go back to the saws that Dad and Mark spoke of. While we're standing at this position, I want to point out our lolly column to you. Now, this is the headache that Dad was talking about earlier. But you see, he's made very good use of it in that he's got places to plug in machines. He's got his drill hanging here. He's got his telephone and address phone number book. He's also got something that's very nice. If you're running a machine, sometimes you can't hear the phone ring, so he's got this extra bell up here. So we've made very good use of this column in that this is a useless side of our machine, and now it doesn't matter. There it is. It's buried and plus doing a job for us. Now we're going to move on over to the thickness planer. My last words to you were that now we're ready to take that board over to a saw, but that's not necessarily true. Ideally, you want to come now to the thickness planer. We have two surfaces on the board right now, a flat working surface and a straight edge. Now we can come over here and give you a straight, parallel, opposite surface. Why don't we do that right now? There you have it. We've got a board here now that is truly ready for a saw. Now this machine, we know for a fact that it's at least 30 years that they have not had to change the design on this machine because we've had one in the family that long. In 30 years, they have not needed to change the design of this machine just because it doesn't need any changes. Everything is here that you need in a planer. We've got a 3-knife balanced cutter head here with Allen adjustable blades, which is very important when you're resetting your knives. It saves hours and hours of time. a serrated in-feed roller. Every roller on the machine is fully adjustable. Another real nice feature on the machine, first of all, we've got an oil bath gearbox here and a throwout. Okay, now this throwout is very simple. You whack that out if you get into a situation where you're taking too much meat off of a board and the motor bogs down, you're getting into trouble. Throw the arm out and you're all set. It's just a real great machine.
Now you've seen where the jointer was positioned and also the thickness planer, but not in relation to our floor plan. So let's put it right about here, which is at least 6 feet from a closed garage door. We don't want to have to open it very often, but usually you're not planing anything more than 3 or 4 feet long. However, there's where our planer goes. We have walk-through space on either side of the jointer, between there and the thickness planer. And I'll give you a little tip. Don't buy a push broom that's wider than the spaces between the bases on these machines. It's just a little point, but you better pick a size that's a little narrower if you need to. Well, now up to this point on the subject of saws, or back to that subject, we've only talked about the ability to saw a perfect straight line. Now we get into another department, and this is the curve department. Anything that isn't straight is a curve, so this means that we're going to be talking about the bandsaw. Where to put it? We have to have an outside corner on some structure or in the room. This is our best outside corner on the lumber rack. So let's place our bandsaw right here at this point. Oh, we'll do it about like this. And that will give us usable space for most of our work. If we might get something that's too long, we'll simply open this outside door and move us around a little shooter out there. That'll be a very rare situation. Bruce, I want you to take it from here.
You know, my father's always impressed on all of us sons that we shouldn't buy tools that are toys, and this certainly isn't a toy. This is a serious machine. This is the Powermatic 14-inch bandsaw, 14 inches from the blade to the arm. You have a 6-inch depth of cut, which is plenty of capacity for most of your resawing operations. The guides I especially like. You have ball bearings on either side of the blade, plus a thrust bearing behind the blade. So you have 3 ball bearings controlling your cut. Your controls for blade tension you can adjust from the front of the machine. You have easy access to the blade and the wheels with these doors that are on piano hinges. Cast iron wheels and a cast iron unibody frame. This is a solid machine. It also has a light that comes on when the machine comes on, and a little dust chute right down here that picks up all the shavings coming off the blade, and most everything goes on the floor or into a vacuum system. Fully enclosed base with a dual voltage 3/4 horsepower motor. This is a sweet saw. This is the only machine in this shop that isn't made in America. This is the Hegner Scrollsaw, and it's made in West Germany. And if you're into doing any sort of intricate work, as I am, this kind of a machine is a must. For pierced work, such as the work that you see behind me, this little fretwork that's supporting these tools, this kind of machine is just the perfect machine. It has a parallel arm which keeps the blade vertical on the up and the downstroke, and also the tension is identical on both the up and downstroke. There's a bellows under here that blows air through this tube on the work and keeps all your dust and crumbs off of the work at all times. It's just a beautiful machine.
Thank you, Bruce. That Hegner is one fine jewel of a machine. But we haven't placed it yet, and the natural spot for it will be with its backed right up to the lolly column. Okay, now we come to the next machine. Not necessarily the next in order of importance, but since this is my shop I'm setting up, I'm going to pick a spot for it, and this is your belt and disc sander. And because this garage door down here is closed most of the time, making this into a shop, that's also a wall. Now I'm going to put this sander right down here.
Well, Dad, I got to tell you, I really am envious of you having this machine. I wish I had a machine that had all the features that this one does for the amount of times I use a belt sander. This, of course, is a combination belt and disc sander, 6x48 belt, 12-inch diameter disc. This table is adjustable from 90 degrees down to 45 and can be moved around in front of the belt. This machine has beautiful tracking action, very simple, very positive. This is what you need in a machine. And again, it's a very solid machine. And I think the feature that I like the most about it is the fact that it has its own built-in dust collection system in the bottom. And all the dust that would be normally flying all over the shop winds up in a drawer in the bottom, and you simply take it out and dump it in the garbage. It has a quick adjustment to 45 degrees and down to horizontal. You can take off this fence that's on the front if you have to surface a board. The headstock also opens up so you have access to the drum on the top for contour sanding. I literally carve on these machines. But beyond that, we use this machine as a sharpening machine for all our chisels and plane irons. All our fine hand tool irons are sharpened on a belt sander. I'm going to just run through a little demonstration of what this baby can do. This is a truly terrific machine.
It takes good equipment and quite a bit of equipment to really be set up in a professional way. But the next machine, of course, it's one of the most important too, is a drill press, and we've got an ideal spot for it. Ideal. It's right down here between the garage doors. Of course, we're wired for it. We've got an outlet right by it. Now, let me just tell you something, that you're going to look at this in reference to the table saw, and you're going to say, yeah, he's not going to get a sheet of plywood through there. Oh, yes, I am, because you see, the drill press table is adjustable up and down, and I can avoid that. Okay? You know, my boys tell me I can't spend an hour telling you about a drill press. So I'm going to do it in something less than that, but I want to tell you something. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is buying a dinky drill press this year and a less dinky drill press next year and advancing in that way. It would be so nice if you could buy the best to start with and have a forever tool. This is really it. It's really precision. You have a 6-inch depth of drilling distance. I mean, it just extends down in. This becomes a mortising feature. It reaches down into your work. You've got variable speed up here. You've got it from 450 clear on up to a speed that you can actually route with this. You can shape with it, you kinds of things. I think, see, I just tossed out of this shop one of the best brand names you can ever think of. Why? Because it just was not accurate. This was not running true. And it has to. You put a little drill bit in this, you don't want this wobbling around. We're going to be going into all kinds of operations with the drill press before this series is over. One of them will be hollow chisel mortising. This is drilling a square hole. And in a series, this makes an elongated rectangular mortise, right? There's oh so many things. You put a drum sander in here. You can do many, many things. I just want you to know that I've lived in a shop of my own for 40 years, and this is an achievement. We're going to come to the real nice part now. I call this the art department. And I'll not tease you at all. This involves your lathe. And of all the machines that we've been talking about, we have to say that this is carving under power, and that the operation and the results are totally up to you. A lathe is a wonderful, wonderful machine, a wonderful way to get away. You can't think about your bills or your hard luck while you're operating a lathe. I'm going to turn this over to the guy who really does it well and show you a beautiful piece of equipment.
This is a real monster. And if you're going to do any kind of serious lathe turning, you need a monster. Don't forget, a lot of times you start out with an out-of-balance turning, and you don't want the lathe walking across the floor. Everything about it is heavy. Don't buy a lathe that is anything but heavy cast iron. It's very, very important. The tail rest is also solid cast iron, even the hand wheel's cast iron. The tool rest slides beautifully and needs no wrench. It's always got a lever right there. It adjusts great. Really nice. Now here we are. Again, solid cast iron headstock and an infinitely variable speed motor. One nice feature about this lathe is that it has a safety starting switch. You can't start this lathe at anything but its slowest speed. You can't start it at all sometimes. To stay honest with the government, got a nice safety shield out of Lexan, and it works pretty well. Back on the wall, pretty good assortment of accessories, and a couple of them I ought to mention. We have an extra long tool rest for doing table legs so you don't have to reposition at any point, and a really nice curved rest, which I don't think anybody besides Powermatic makes. It's really good. Up here, we have contour sanders that are pumped up with an air pump, and that's for doing cabriole legs and that kind of thing, which you'll see later on in our series. And over here, naturally, is Grandpa Kunkel watching out for everybody. Well, I have that lathe in my shop.
Well, it's not in your shop, it's in mine. And I'm going to spend a lot of hours on it. That's about it for now. We want to thank you for being with us. I want to thank Mark, Bruce, and Wally for a hard day, and I'm going to thank the video crew. It's been a hot one. Please be with us in our next tape program, which will be hand and power tools and how they're related. We're going to leave you now, and we're also going to have a little fun to wind this up. We want you to see how we live.